The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, Ralph Tyko, the Tokin Jew in Alameda, California. And we're right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland. And as you know, if you follow me on my podcast, I talk to the most interesting people on the face of the planet, and today is no exception. Art Kusnyer, former Major League player, former Major League coach, and first time in the zone. Thank you for joining us, Art. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. Where are you calling from?
Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, okay. Where were you raised? Were you raised in Florida, or you just decided to settle there after you played?
I was born and I was raised in Akron, Ohio.
Oh, not a hotbed for baseball prospects. How did you take to baseball when you were a kid? What brought on a major league career?
Well, my dad started me playing when I was 5 years old, and I kept going, and then, played Little League and everything. One time they said, who wants to catch? And I says, I'll catch. And so I caught my whole career through high school and, college at Kent State for a little bit, and then I signed in 1966 with the White Sox.
Okay,
and came to Sarasota, Florida. That's where their rookie league team was, and they were training here. And I said, I told my wife, I said, I'd like to really move here someday. And then when I got the coaching job with the White Sox, I moved here.
Okay, now that was after Kent State, naturally. And that rings a bell with me because we're about the same age. And I think if my calculations are correct, you were at Kent State when the tragedy took place that put Kent State on the map. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, I wasn't really there when they had the shooting and stuff there. My wife was there. I had left for spring training.
Okay.
And so I wasn't really there, but I was.
As a young person at the time, how did that affect your ideology? Was that kind of a shock? Can this be happening in these United States? What went through your head and your wife's too?
Well, it was an awful thing to happen. Things just escalated, and with the Vietnam War going on, and everybody was protesting and so forth, and I was really shocked to hear that like Kent State had something go on like that. My wife was shocked too, and they of course they locked down the university for a while, but I just I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Again, those were strange times, and we never thought they'd become strange again. And we seem to be experiencing that now, and I wonder if those days remind you of these days, or these days remind you of those days.
Yeah, well, they do, some, it's a different world now, and just like baseball is a different game now, and there's all this, everything's going on now, with race and everything, and it's just shame, that these people that, in my opinion only, is that they a lot of people taking a lot of stuff for granted in this country, and they shouldn't be, going, they should look around at what they have in this country and not thinking that something's going to be better.
Okay. We talked a little bit about how things have changed. How have they changed for the better, baseball-wise? You may have to stretch to come up with something, but the game I love has taken a lot of heat lately. And can you tell me something good that's come out of all of this, baseball-wise?
Excuse me. It's a little hard to say because baseball is a great game, and I enjoy it, and I just they're making changes for me, to speed up the game, or they're getting all the numbers with the cybermetrics and everything in it now, and I think it really hasn't really helped the game of baseball. The game of baseball is played by people, kids. These kids come up, they play in the game. You need the human aspect of the game, even with the umpires. Now they want to go to electronic umpiring, and I don't think that that's the way to go. I think you have to keep the element in the game, the human side of the game, instead of going, well, you can do this better, you can do this better, and it doesn't really make anything better because you need players and you need good players. And, that's where you're coming from. And that's the bottom line. You can have all the numbers you want, but if you don't have players that can play, then, you're just beating around the bush.
Art, can you describe what it's like to not be an amateur ball player and suddenly be a professional ball player? How does that change? How did that change you? And what is the main difference between amateur ball and professional ball?
Well, the big thing is in professional ball, when you get there are all those guys, were stars or someplace, when they played. And so your competition goes way up. It's like I know that when I first signed in rookie ball, and you had all these guys, coming from all over, and they come from the Dominican, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and, now they're going, like into Japan and Korea and things, which I think is good, and you get in, the competition gets up so much better. Now I used to look around and, and see what guys did, especially what catchers were doing, and try to get as much information and listen to my coaches and, see what was the best way for me to, progress through baseball to get to the big leagues. And then when I came to spring training and for the first time with the big league camp, and I'd see all these, these guys here, and I could just see how high and how tough the competitiveness was, because back then there wasn't any favoritism. They went after the best guys, and you basically wanted to be in that category, so you could get to the big leagues. Because he used to tell me the hardest thing to do when you get to the big leagues is to stay there. Right. Because you got to produce, or otherwise you're gone.
Right. Who is your manager in rookie ball?
My manager was Frankie Perenni, and he was an old timer. And his claim his claim to fame was he roomed with Babe Ruth.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Unlike Leo DeRocha, he didn't steal his watch, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
What did you learn from him right off the bat? First day, what was his? I'm sure he had a team meeting. Guys get together. How did he introduce pro ball to a bunch of amateurs? And what was some of the advice that he gave you early on that stuck with you and helped you?
Well, the thing that helped me the most was, he had said, boys, if you're going to play this game, you got to play this game smart. and you got to learn the game, and you got to learn your opposition, who you're playing against. And I remember the first time when I was down in the bullpen catching, great old guy, Sam Harrison, was the catching instructor. And I was set up. Frankie goes, "Hey, Sam, fix that." Not fix me, but he said, "Show that kid way to set up," because I was setting up, a lot different than the way you're supposed to. And, and I was all ears, because I wanted to be good. I wanted to be a big leaguer, So
right.
I went from there, and then after that it was like, you just better compete because, they didn't have, all the it was taboo to lift a weight. It was, you just went out and you played. You stretched, and then they would tell you, they would go through cutoffs and relays, base running, and everything like that. So it was, a real learning down there, to see how far, how far you want to go, because then it wasn't like, well, we have to play everybody, it was like the best guys played. There was 8 catchers on that team.
Whoa. Did you feel overwhelmed, awed, or did you have the confidence? It seems to me, the way you said, I want to be a catcher. I don't think you had much doubts along the way. Did you question yourself at that point? 8 catchers? Where am I going to be?
No, see, when I was catching, I liked it because I was on every pitch, and I was on every, play that was going on the field. And that's, and I really liked and loved doing that, being the guy and understanding my pitchers. As time went on as a catcher, you learn how to handle the game, how to take charge of a game, and a lot of things that go on that people don't see that a catcher has to do.
Most of it is psychological, I would assume, the communication with your pitcher. Did you have pitchers that would shake you off a lot? Did you have pitchers that left you in control, or a combination of both?
Well, there were a lot of catchers the pitchers that if they had trust in you, then you could take control of that guy and what he was throwing. And you see, you had meetings and you would talk to pitchers, especially when I was a younger catcher in the big leagues, or even when I got to AAA, and we had a lot of older guys that had played in the big leagues. So they would, they'd say, "Hey, I want to talk to you," and they'd say, "This is what I want to do during the game." So you take that, and take it out to the field. So it was a learning process. So you got to know your pitchers, and then after a while, you would go and you'd see a guy maybe get in the box and make an adjustment because he's throwing, let's say, a real good slider that day, and you might see him move up in the box, So you go, okay, we're going to go fastball in on this guy, just to make it simple. So it was always learning, and I always I always talked to the guys that were successful. Never went to a guy that was 500 or less in the big leagues, because basically misery loves company. And the guy, so for me it was like I went to the guys that were really successful, And
who is the best catching instructor in your organization?
Well, when I came up, there was Les Moss and Sam Harrison were the 2 guys, and they, really showed me, basically, the most of the stuff you would do, as a catcher behind the plate, and footwork. Right. And I ran into Hal Monchek down in Instruction League one year, and he was always with Chuck Tanner as a coach. And then when I got to the big leagues, I was fortunate to have Jeff Torborg and John Stevenson, who were 2 veteran catchers, and they helped me. But our bullpen our bullpen coach was John Roseborough.
Whoa.
And John and I became good friends, and he was a standout catcher, for the Dodgers for many years. And so what he did was back then we had this golf cart, with the hat on it. I don't know if you remember that. They bring the relievers in.
Yes.
And we'd drive around the ballpark, on the field and stuff, and he would talk to me about what he did, about calling the game, about understanding the opposition, and how to portray that into the mind of the pitcher. So I had a lot of people, that really came around and, and really helped me, and I wasn't one of those guys that used the two greatest words around, and that's yeah, but.
Yeah, but.
But, okay, well, because I saw guys that would say, oh, yeah, but, but I can put this and that. And basically what it was is they didn't want to put the effort.
They weren't taking it in. Basically, they were just thinking about their excuse before they got the knowledge. If they could say, yeah, but, they're questioning the validity of the knowledge. And it sounds like you didn't do that. How did you meet Tony La Russa?
Well, it's a story that I was with the Kansas City Royals, and I'm not going to get into there was a contract dispute there, and because I had played with them in '78, and I was in the big leagues most of the year with them, and we won the division. But anyway, got through that, and I talked to John Sherholtz, who was the general manager, and he says, well, I'll give you your release. So I called almost every team, and I had a couple offers from Seattle, one from Seattle, one from Toronto, because there were new teams in the league, and they were looking for older guys for AAA,
Right.
So anyway, I called because I had been with the White Sox before, and I was traded. Well, Roland Heeman was a general manager who was a wonderful man.
Rest his soul. He passed away very recently, and right. I had him as a guest on my podcast, and I was thrilled. What a gentleman!
He was great. So I called the White Sox because my wife told me, because I said, well, the White Sox got two young catchers, because when I was playing for the Royals in Omaha, the White Sox had Marv Foley and Colburn was a high draft pick. And I said, well, they got these two guys. They're not going to take me. Well, she says, what do you got to lose? So I says, okay. So I called Roland, and Roland said, yeah. He says, he goes, yeah, come on over. Get your release, and then we'll sign you. And he gave me more money than Kansas City was for AAA or the other teams. So I ended up signing with them. And when I got there, and I talked with Roland, and Roland told me, he says, he'd probably going to AAA with Tony La Russa, and he's going to be a hell of a big league manager someday. Well, we all know he ended up in the Hall of Fame. And Tony and I became real good friends, and I was with him through the years when he was with the White Sox as his bullpen coach, and then he went to Oakland. And then the year later, I managed a rookie league team because Larry Hines Jim Fregosi had taken over the team, and they had fired all the coaches. And so, but they wanted me to stay with them in the organization. So I managed a rookie league team. Tony called me, says, I want you to come out to Oakland and be my bullpen coach. So then I took the job, and I went out there with him. And then in '97, I came back to the White Sox.
Okay. Between there and 97, there must have been some incredible moments with Tony. He's out and out a genius. There's no question about that. And what did you learn from him? Maybe not about baseball, but about life a little bit. What did he help you with?
Well, he just, we would talk about the, you only get one sweet moment of time in life. And you get one sweet moment of time in baseball. So he said you got to play the game hard. You have to play the game right and no bullshit. And, it was like, this is where you go for, because there'll be some day that you'll be one of these guys, and what just came to be true, because players would come to me after they were out of the game, and they would come to a game, somewhere. I mean, I might be in Detroit, or I might be in, Texas or someplace, and guys I played with, and the one thing they all said, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have listened, instead of, like thinking I had it made, because all of a sudden it's over. And it's tough, I mean, baseball is a business, and they want good players. Like I said earlier, you got to have the players if you're going to win, and not just, they got to be smart and they got to know what they're doing. Because if you have to tell a guy what to do every time he goes to the field or he pitches, well, you're going to have a rough time winning games. Just the competing, and we had talked about, things, and the other thing was, hard work and, go for it, because like I said, life, when you only get one sweet moment of time at baseball, and then all of a sudden it passes you by. It's even in life, just.
Art, do you have any, it doesn't sound like it to me, just talking to you, but do you have any real regrets about anything? Is there anything that you would have done particularly differently? Are you scared about anything?
No, I'm very pleased with what I did. The only regret I think I have is that I would have, when I was coming up, I should have just sat back a couple times, and just learned. I just was trying too hard sometimes, instead of just, going through life with that, and the other guy had a great time with, and really straightened me out around with my hitting was Charlie Lau.
Oh, yes. A hitting guru, and with an A's background like yourself. Did you talk about that at all?
No. Not with Charlie. We just, because I was a player under Charlie in Kansas City in '78, and then he came to the White Sox because Tony really liked Charlie, and so Vada Pinson was our hitting coach, who was a great human being, and just fabulous guy. Vada was something else. But anyway, Tony got him a job in Seattle, and he went and got Charlie Lau to come over with us. And that was in '83 when we won our division by 18 games, but we ended up losing to Baltimore in the playoffs.
I don't know if you remember that I was the Tops rep back in those days. And all these guys, Les Moss, Stevenson, all these guys I have memories of, some from when I was a kid as a fan. Stevenson made the last out in the Jim Bunning perfect game. Just to throw something in there. But I have fond memories of the minor leagues. Do you regret what's happening to the minor leagues today? And how do you think that'll affect baseball years down the road in terms of players not developing as they would have if the minors were kept intact?
I think, they need the minor leagues. They need to have the, all these guys. I had great times in the minor leagues. And, I got stories, there's things that went on like on bus rides and stuff, and you dealt with it. And now they want to take everything away, and now they sign a guy, and then within 2 or 3 months, he's in the big leagues. And they, then all of it, they'll have success maybe as a pitcher for a while, and then all of a sudden he says, I'm having trouble getting people out. That's because they know what you're doing now. The other team knows what you're doing or going to try to do. And these guys, they can't learn it. They have to learn in the big leagues. That's the biggest problem, instead of learning in the minor leagues. When I first signed, they told me I was going to have to catch 350 games before I got to the big leagues. And I caught 22 games at Sarasota, the rookie ball, and I'm going, God, I'm not even under 300 games, you know.
You got a long way to go.
Yeah, so
is a lot of it just hanging in there mentally and just trusting the process that if you do what they tell you to do, it's going to take care of itself?
I believe so. I think you got to have patience. You know, guys, they have a good year and they think, oh, well, a guy in A-ball has a good year. Maybe a guy, you know, double A or something, they have a good year. And they go, well, you know, I should be in the big leagues. Well, the big leagues is another ball game when you get there because you might face maybe two guys or even lower ball. You might face one guy that's really got really good stuff. Well, the higher you go, that guy is going to be in the next level with another guy and then another guy. So you get to the big leagues, you may be facing four good starters, and then you got to face the bullpen. And that's the whole process. And then you learn how you make your adjustment to the pitcher, and the pitcher's going to try to make an adjustment to you. And this has to all be taught. You know, there's a lot of things that people that are in the stands, they don't. You know, they see the obvious with the games going on. They don't know the little things that are going on to, you know, that I was taught and other guys, you know, as a catcher or when I would hit or what I'd have for my pitcher, you know, and I just and you'd learn that, you know. I mean, I went to rookie ball, then I went to Appleton, Wisconsin, played, you know, often, and then I went back to Appleton. Then I went to Lynchburg, Virginia. Then I went to Double A, you know, at Mobile, Alabama. And then I signed and went to Triple A. And when I got traded from the White Sox to the Angels, because Les Moss was the coach with in the minor leagues with the White Sox and got me with the Angels. And then I ended up going to the big. Yeah, and then I went to the big leagues the following year. Well, I went up for a cup of coffee with the Angels. I went up, you know, with the White Sox. I had a cup of coffee too, but you know, that's when you go up in the end of September. And then,
were you with the Angels around the Gene Autry time?
Yeah, I was there. Nolan Ryan was my roommate.
Oh, really? Former Met. Speaking of, I want to know what Autry was like. I met Nolan Ryan a number of times, but never got the privilege of meeting the Cowboy. What was he like as an owner, and how did he? Was he a good owner for the players or a bad owner?
He loved his players.
Okay.
You know, he loved his players, and he would always come down in the clubhouse, and he would sometimes sing these songs, you know, to some of the Latin guys. You know, talk about his movie days, and you know, and he was he was a good man. I mean, I liked him. He was always very nice to me, and you know, very cordial. And I just, you know.
Yeah. Who did you root for as a kid before you know, as a kid growing up? Was it the Indians coming?
Yeah, it was the Indians.
Okay. Did you have any experience knowing or meeting or rooting for Jim Hegan, who was considered the best defensive catcher in the American League at the time? I wonder.
No, I never, you know, I'd go to the games, you know, and my wife and I, you know, would double date. We'd go up to the Cleveland game, but I would just, I'd watch the players. Back then, I didn't really pay a lot of attention, and I wasn't a big autograph seeker,
Right.
And so I didn't really get into all that, too much. I just loved watching the game, and it was just a lot of fun, and you'd sit there, I guess as a kid, I'm going, man, someday I hope I'm on that field.
Wow. Wow. And who was there when you got called up to the majors and got to be on that field? Who told you the news?
Let's see, I was in Double-A ball, and Tony was, I was in Double-A, and our manager, who was our manager then, I think it was Wozniak, and he came to me and he says, after the season, this last game, he says, pack up and drive to Chicago. You're going to the big leagues, and you're going up there, want to see you up there. So I was like, wow. So I jumped in my Mustang with my Landau top, and my wife and I, we hauled up to Chicago. And it was, and I was in awe, because, I remember, went to the ballpark, and I'm thinking, wow, this, because the ballparks are so much bigger, than the minor league parks, and you just like,
right.
Do you think I can hit one out of here, or, but
or just one more deck? That's all it was.
Yeah.
But that deck was immense, if you think about it.
Yeah, it was.
Who greeted you in the majors that first day?
Well, when I came, because I knew most of those guys from spring training, and one of the guys was Ed Herman. God rest his soul. He was a great guy, and he was hey, Kush, you got to come over here. This is, got to do this, and and if you need anything, I'll help you out. And
wow.
So and then the other guys came over. Bill Melton, Josephson was there, and Walt Williams, and so all the guys were.
Go ahead.
No, Walt Williams was, he was a good guy. All those guys were, that just,
yeah.
professional, and they were good guys. It wasn't like they were treating you, and you knew your place as a rookie back then. You didn't come in and start walking around like you got 10 years in the game. So,
did your paths cross with Richie Allen at all?
Yeah, Richie was a nice guy, and I came up that year with them at the end of the year. He was there, and we talked, and he was just a good guy, just quiet, and he did his thing, and he had so much talent, it was unbelievable. And I remember when I had to laugh, because when he came to spring training late, and there was like a week and a half, 2 weeks to go into spring training, and I was over there warming this guy up, and all the reporters were around him, and they said, "Hey, Richie," he goes, "how long is it going to take you to get ready to start the season?" And he turned around, this pitcher was on the mound, and he says, "When he gets loose."
He'll be ready when he gets loose. I love that. that.
Yeah, he was.
Did you ever see a ball come off a bat faster than that? What would come off of Richie Allen's bat? Just as a fan, as a kid, I would marvel. They didn't have statistics now like exit volume or whatever the hell they call it, but you would just know Richie Allen hit the ball hard.
Oh yeah, I mean he used a big bat, and I mean there was some guys that I was fortunate to play behind. They did the same thing. Two of them were Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays.
Yes.
And I mean,
they were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, they were spring training, that I played, and I got to catching. I mean, those guys they would sit there and they would say, "You want to see my swing?" And he'd go, "Yeah." And they go, "You want to see it again?" I mean, it was.
That's good. That's good.
And it's these guys, and just they were just be around them, and it was like they didn't care who was pitching. It was
right.
Unbelievable. It's just that I was very fortunate to be around some great guys, great players, and play against them, and just sit around, listen to these guys talk. You can pick up a lot. You can become you can get more knowledge than ever.
Right.
And
you're talking about superstars. My interest is overachievers. Who did you play with that you considered to be played well beyond his God-given talents and did it all by trying hard, the old-fashioned all-American baseball way? Was there someone that stands out in your life, in your memory, that just overachieved?
It's kind of hard to say, for me to go back. I'm trying to rack my brain right now because I've seen a lot of guys that were, I shouldn't say a lot, but there were a lot of great guys that they used their whatever they did. They were, you could see them. They came to beat your ass every day.
Was Art Kushner one of those?
I would say so. Because I had, like, my hitting. I was always worried about my hitting, so I had more stances than chins in a Chinese phone book. And,
yeah, can't say that where I live. I live in the Bay Area, but that's a very good line. What motivated you as a kid to be an overachiever? Who was it? Was it your dad, grandfather, uncle? Who pushed you?
Well, my dad, he was good. With us, he was always willing to work with me and my brothers, and he was never and I learned this from him, that you can't coach or manage by intimidation. There's a way you get on guys, or you tell them, to make them better. Now, if you want to get better, then you're going to listen and do what he says and try to do it. You may not do it overnight, but you can, keep trying. So he, my dad was always there for us, and for me, he'd throw me batting practice, and, sometimes you get like swing the bat instead of sitting there poking at it, But he was a great inspiration to me, coming up, and I did everything. And I don't know. I had the attitude that if somebody said this guy is this guy's a real good pitcher, this guy can hit or something, I always wanted to be able to get the guy out or get a hit off that guy,
Right. The challenge is what motivated you more than anything.
Oh yeah, I like the challenge. It was, let's go for it.
Okay.
So,
Art, the one last thing I want to cover with you is the 1989 World Series and the earthquake. I've been fortunate enough to have Mr. Leondakis, who did the ultimate video documentary. I can't think of his first name right now. He's been a guest on the show. And all of a sudden there's an earthquake before game one. And where were you? Where was your wife? Maybe kids? What was your thought? Do I get them to get out of the stadium? What was that moment like?
Yeah, I was standing on the field, and I was talking to Al Goldis, and he was in the first row by the dugout. I was just talking to him, and all of a sudden we heard this big bang. And next thing I know, I'm looking down at him, and then I'm back on the ground. Because the ground just like a wave, like you see in the movies, where
Right.
it rolls. And I went, holy, I said, what the hell was that? And then the lights went out. They had them on, but it was still dusk. It wasn't real dark. So my first thought was, I got to find my wife, find out where she's at, because somebody says, welcome to California, it's an earthquake. Well, at that time, I'd lived there. And then my son was there, and we had some relatives, and we ended up, the cop cars came on the field and says, everybody's got to go because the Bay Bridge collapsed, and this one freeway it collapsed, and I only lived like maybe an hour away from the ballpark. Took me 6 hours to get home.
Whoa. What part of the Bay Area were you living in?
Well, I was in San Ramon.
Oh, Gene Tanacci lived in San Ramon. That's what comes to mind. I lived in Danville for a while, and so I know the area, and I've heard stories about other people being stranded. Quite a memory. And then the A's came back and just destroyed the Giants in the remaining games. It was good times and bad.
Yeah, it was a scary thing, and we just we lucky we had no damage at our house. It was mainly right there around the stadium and that particular area around there. So, we did that. So I know that.
Did it make you, for all the rest of the time you lived in California, did you think, is there another one coming? Was it in the back of your mind?
Well, you figure, you're there. They have earthquakes, so you're just I'm not sitting down, get up every morning and wait for one, or anything. You just go about your business, and if it happens, it happens. So that's what I did. Never worried about it. Then I moved back to Florida, because the taxes were killing me. So I just said I got to go back. So I went back, and then that's when I ended up back with the White Sox.
Good. You sound so happy and so content with your career. It's a pleasure listening to you.
Yeah, well, I've had a good time in baseball. Never pushed it. I got to play against some great guys. Like I said, I room with Nolan Ryan, and so he's an outstanding human being. And I just was going to do a card show. The guy was going to call me because I caught his second no hitter. And so,
whoa, that's got to be a good memory. Wow, what's Nolan Ryan like? The Nolan Ryan that we don't hear about as fans, as outsiders. Tell me something about Nolan that would surprise us.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When he's not on the field, and he's off the field and he's around, he is one gentleman, and he'll sign your autographs, and he doesn't go around big leaguing people like some guys do. And but I'll tell you one thing. When he gets on that mound, you better tie your shoes on real tight, because you make any kind of some kind of a gesture that ticks him off, he would knock you on your butt, and I got to meet him when I signed his son's
Topps contract in Visalia. And he came up behind me, and it was just an incredible experience. And he had an interest. He wanted to know what I was telling his kid about Topps baseball. Tell me about your experience with Topps. Did you know Sy Berger, my boss, at all?
Yeah, I did. And I really like Sy. And I think there's something that a lot of people, they didn't know about, was when he, like every spring, he'd come around and have checks for like $500.
Right. Or a catalog. Well, he could give you a refrigerator from the catalog, too.
Sure. I mean, they had everything there. And so what I found out, I came to spring training. We were in Glendale. And he sold the club. I mean, not the club, but he sold, he was out of Topps.
Right.
So they come in, the representatives from Topps, they come in. So they're handing out all these checks. So I go up to the kid and I go, hey, you got my check for me, please? No, we don't. I go, what do you mean you don't? Make a long story short, the bullpen coaches weren't supposed to get a check from Topps for years, but Sy did it out of the goodness of his heart.
Oh.
And then then the new group takes over, because I went to a lot of the bullpen coaches that I knew, and they said, no, we didn't get one because. And guess who was the one that says you couldn't get it? Major League Baseball.
Right.
So I talked to the representatives, and it was going to be an uphill battle. I said, "The hell with it. It's not worth it. It's been $1 million, and I might have said, hey, that's a different story." But just to let you know, he was a great guy. He was always very cordial and everything. And I mean, he, out of the goodness of his heart. This guy told me that, that he gave all the players. I mean, I had baseball cards out there too, so it wasn't like but I got shunned, and many other guys did too. But Sy was a great guy.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because my memories of him coincide with yours. He was just a humanist. He loved people, and he ran it. The superstars didn't make more money, with few exceptions, than the average player. It was like a union. Everybody made the same thing. When I signed players, the original was a $5. They used to call it check, stake money. And it would obligate players, so when and if they reach the big leagues, they get big bucks. I remember saying that expression to Robbie Thompson in the minors, and he looked at me and he said, "When and if I will be in the major leagues." And this was just a kid who was like 5'10", wiry, not much more talent than the average guy. And it was my contention that his mindset carried him to the big leagues. I wonder how many others make it. Like Yogi Berra said, it's 50% mental and 90% physical, or something like that. What you're thinking is going to determine how far you go. And I wonder if you have that belief.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to believe in what you're doing. And how bad do you want it? If you're going to be someone that's going to lay down because, I had you learn from your mistakes. And if you're going to dwell on that, you know what I mean? And,
yes.
And then you don't. If you want something in this country, you can go and get it instead of asking somebody to, I was good here in Z-ball, and I need to go to the big leagues and make $5 million a year. That's a bunch of crap. You got to earn it. You got to earn what you got. And those are the guys that I respected the most. You know, I see guys working their butts off day in and day out there in that cage, you know, and guys would come and say, hey, you know, you can't make the team in one day. No, but somewhere down the road, this session will get me to the big leagues because I'm going to do it every day till I get better, you know.
Yeah. You know, life's an adjustment, and I want to know how you adjusted after your big league career. The motor's running. The competitive stuff is there. How do you channel it as a retiree?
Well, the one thing I did was I accepted it. I loved it. You know, I wanted to get back there. And there were times like when I go to spring training, and I call it on scholarship, as you know, I'd go and I would work, you know, I'd work with the kids, the ones that wanted to listen, and because I'm not chasing nobody, because those are the guys that aren't going anywhere. They'll be 6-year free agents and then complaining why aren't in the big leagues. But anyway, I accept. You know, I'm legally blind.
Oh, and so, I did not know that.
So, yeah, and so I accept that. I mean, it's not like I can see things, but I haven't driven a car in 12 years, but, you know, you have to accept. And like I told these kids, you know, I had my time, and I am happy with what I did and what I went through and how I handled it and so forth. And so, you know, well, how do you handle your sight? Accept it. What am I going to do? Sit and pout all day? I said, you know, you got to wake. I just accepted it. I mean, because you know why? You get old. And I've talked to guys and they've had guys call me, like Paul Canarco called me and says, how do you accept it, you know, the retirement? I says, Paulie, you've done everything you can. If you keep trying to play, you're just going to embarrass yourself. You know, it's because you're going to go to the plate. You even tell me, you know, my bat's not there. It's like I'm swinging underwater. Well, you had a great career. Step aside. You know, I mean, I know it's tough because when you're a very competitive person, you don't want to, you know, you just want to get in there, you know, and do it. But Father Time takes care of your ass, so, you know, you just
all of our asses, no matter what we're doing, and it's called mortality. We've experienced more mortality in these last 2 years. 7 Hall of Fame players died last year. It's very humbling, mortality is. So I'll try to avoid it for a while longer. That's what I'm going to ask you to do. Avoid mortality.
Just go for it. And one thing is, I don't care how much money you got, you can't stop aging.
That's for sure. And all we have basically are our memories when it comes down to it. And I'm so delighted that you shared some of yours. You made this a great podcast. Thank you, Art.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And you keep doing what you're doing, brother.
I will, and I hope we meet down the baseball road. What's the expression? I'll see you down the baseball road.
Meet you at home plate or out of the cornfield.
Right. That was a great movie. But you know what? I have 2 movies that are that one and The Natural that I love. Speaking of baseball movies. Thank you again, Art. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Art Kushner was my guest. You're a Renaissance man.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, well, indeed. You got great memories, a great history, and you lived your life, and that's very important.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm still going to go for it, too.
Beautiful. I love to hear it. Keep in touch. Come back soon. And again, thank you, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Thank you for listening, everybody. Happy trails and adios.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.